It stayed 4 inches tall. I'm just laying there with my eyes open looking at this thing. It's floating closer and closer and closer and closer to me. And right when it gets to basically outside my window, it goes white room. And it was, I don't even know if I was standing. I was just in a white room and I just heard this. And standing there, it's so weird. I can't even use terms like in front of me, just you were aware of this, was an angel. It was how I would perceive an angel. It was a blonde-haired woman in white robes. Now, I should have explained this part at the beginning, because some of you guys know this and some of you guys don't. The reason why I brought up the angel story a long time ago, I was talking about where I was fighting shadow people or something like that. And what I did, and it was this, I don't know how I came up with this idea or why I even thought it would work, but apparently it did. I think that was the demon, the shadow people. Was it the demons surround us? No, it wasn't that episode. Sorry, guys. Should be more prepared. But anyways, go back. Just listen to every episode of 10 Rabbit Radio. You'll find it. I talked about where I took a part of my soul and, like, it sounds so cringy when I talk about it, but basically, like, removed a little piece of my soul and made it into, like, a thought weapon, like a psychic weapon. Because I figured if my soul is indestructible and blessed by God, then therefore anything from my soul should also be the same. So if I can meditate on taking a piece of my soul out and turning it into a weapon, a sword, then it would basically be the equivalent of punching someone with your soul or stabbing someone with your soul. So I did that when I was in my early 20s. And I also did the same thing and made myself like a little shield. Because I used to be 10 toes deep into hunting ghosts, trying to summon demons and punch them in the face, and all sorts of just nonsense, right? Not that hunting ghosts is nonsense, but thinking that you can summon a demon and then kick it in the nuts is the height of stupidity. But anyways, so I countered shadow people and all sorts of monsters and goblins, stuff like that. So I figured I needed some sort of defenses. So I took a little piece of my soul and meditated on it and did work on it and all that stuff. And over the course of weeks, I made this thought sword. It wasn't real. It didn't actually exist. I wasn't walking around with the hilt like at the Ren Fair. This was something that I made out of my mind, a Tulpa weapon. And I had a shield too. So that existed. And I always would use that. It was basically, I guess, it would be like a security blanket. It was very, very very odd thing. It does sound very cringy when I talk about it. But let's jump back to the present. I'm standing in this white room. I'm in a white room. There's this angel in front of me. And she's holding a toy wooden sword and a toy wooden shield. And then she gives them to me. And she takes the sword and shield that I made. So as she's handing me this toy sword and this toy shield made of wood, she's taking away these things that I had made 14, 15 years ago out of meditating and visualizing a piece of my soul coming out and forging it and doing all of this work. She takes those from me and gives me the toys of a child pretending to be at war. And she basically takes like 2 chunks of my soul. And then she's right next to my ear. And she's standing there and she whispers into my ear. I can hear her. And then I'm laying there on my recliner. And the sun's coming up. I remember I told that story to Lana and she goes, well, what did the angels say? And I go, I don't know. I don't remember. I tried remembering immediately what the angel was saying to me, whispering in my ear. I have no idea. And I've gone over that event a lot. And you're like, Jay, well, that's weird. Jason just had a dream. We're just getting started. Well, we're almost near the end. We're not just getting started, but I've tried figuring out what that encounter meant over the years. It terrified me so much, I didn't want to be alone on my next few birthdays. I was afraid it was going to come back. And you go, Jason, what's so terrifying about that? Well, ever since then, I've had this really weird thing where I've become, people who know me, especially when I was younger, knew I'm fairly empathetic, but nowadays it's almost paralyzing sometimes. When I'm reading the newspaper, I kind of mentioned this in the military episode when I was talking about the ISIS soldiers getting blown away. I said, guys, listen, I know these people have families and mothers and fathers who love them and first loves and stuff like that, but they're bad guys, and then I go on to proceed how the British dude just blows their heads off with a shotgun. I cannot read any sort of news account or hear any sort of story or even watch a fictional horror movie or action movie or whatever without completely empathizing with every single person in that movie. And that's not a superpower, other people can do it, but for me, since that encounter, it's become tenfold. When I read an article about somebody getting killed, whether or not they are the bad guy, like let's take those ISIS soldiers for example, and I had that comment, and it sounded like a throwaway comment, but that kid, his mom was cradling, I can picture all of this stuff, the mom cradling the little baby boy, him getting his feelings hurt at school one day and kind of throwing rocks against the car and then someone out getting in trouble, his first kiss, his first love, when he feels the sun on his face, his favorite comic book, and then bam, shotgun to the head as he's trying to build a suicide vest. That happens to me all the time. I'm not visualizing it, I'm not hallucinating, but my empathetic feelings are in overload right now. To the point where even when I watch like an action movie and Terminator's just like gunning down security guards, I'm like, oh my god, they have families! Those people had lives just like mine. They had hopes and dreams and aspirations, they had first loves and breakups, and they sat in the living room crying in the dark one night with SpaghettiO stains on their shirt. Every human goes through those things. It's super bizarre. But I've also been instilled with a sense of dread and fear that I've never had before in my life. I don't want to say no fear. There were certain things I feared. I wasn't a fan of heights. I wasn't a fan of water. But I would go into rough neighborhoods and start trouble, and I wouldn't have a problem. Someone says, you got a problem? I say, yeah, you. Like, I had no problem being an open jerk and courting danger at any point in my life. Until that. After that, I have become a different person. Less reckless. And people could go, well, that's a good thing. You're maturing. But to me, it feels like such a core part of my identity is gone. Because I used to just not care. At all. When I keep saying fearful, I don't even really think that's right. Fearful and being less reckless are good things. My anxiety attacks have been sky high since then. Like, anxiety attacks I've never had. Like, I just feel like I'm constantly under threat from something. I wake up basically with an anxiety attack. And for the most part, it hasn't gone away since. So when I say fearful, I'm meaning more like that. I'm not scared of the spooky. Well, I'm scared of the spooky woods, but it's not like a fearfulness like a Scooby-Doo. It's more of just like this, every muscle in my body is constantly tightened, waiting for something that won't come. So it's more anxiety than fearfulness. And it's not a good level of, oh, I'm going to be careful. It's more like, I have to be careful, otherwise I can die at any moment. It's that level of anxiety/fear. Primal fear, not spooky fear. Now, it's possible that this is all just stuff that's normal with growing up, and since I'm growing up for the first time, this is something everyone goes through. But it feels like such a core part of my identity was lost that night. And an additional part was added on, i.e., just being too tuned into people. I talk a lot, and when I say, oh yeah, I read a lot of true crime, I used to read a lot of true crime, that's the reason why I stopped. I just couldn't enjoy it anymore. Because I'm reading about these victims, and I can't help but seeing every point in their life. It's sucked all the entertainment value out of people being murdered for me. And it's funny because I always wondered what the symbolism was of me getting the toy sword and the toy shield. And it's funny because I know what it is. I knew what it was then, and I always tried finding an alternative answer because I don't like the answer. And that's the funny thing, a lot of times when we analyze stuff, we have to be honest with the answers we get. The reason why those things were taken from... Assuming any of this is real. Again, assuming it's totally not a dream, and it just happened to happen at a time where I had this big awakening and I was turning 36, and assuming any of this is real. I was given those items, and taken... The sword and shield that I made were taken away from me, and I was given these toy sword and shield. For one of two reasons, actually. I've always thought maybe it's because God is saying that I don't need any of these fancy weapons, any of these fancy thought forms to fight demons or monsters, that God's power over darkness is strong enough that even a toy sword and shield can destroy them. You don't need this mega blade that you built out of your soul. That's the answer I want to believe, but I don't think that's what it meant. I think that what that shield and sword represent is, you're a little boy. You're a very, very little boy. And if you think that you're ready for what's coming, you deserve little boy toys. If you think in any way, shape, or form you're ready for challenges that may await you with these things that you built with your brain, if you think any of these things will do you any good, you're a dumb little child who deserves dumb little toys. You know, I want to say this too. This isn't an ARG. This isn't a fake narrative that I'm building up over the course of the seasons or anything like that. I want to be clear on that. As far as that story is, that story ended that night. There is no follow-up where I see like a dark shadow in the corner and he's like, "You think you're ready for me?" None of that. Like, all of these stories are fairly self-contained. I don't want you to think, oh great, he's building up to some big narrative that at the end, if we donate to his Patreon, he can fight Golorth or whatever. No, these are all just kind of independent moments in my life. But I think that that's why I got the Toy Sword and Shield. That I think of myself as kind of this big bad warrior guy, but I'm just a little boy. And it's funny because that's the first time I've said that out loud, and now that I think about it, that would make me fearful. If I thought I was this big bad rough street fighter tumbler dude because I've gotten in a few scrapes, but none of that is there's nothing that has happened in my life that's preparing me for what may come in the future. And that would make you fearful, actually. I never thought about that. Being told that you're not ready would make you fearful. So I wonder if those two things were connected. Yeah, I never really made that connection. Because I've only told this story to maybe like 3 people. I told it to Lana, I told it to Jenny. I think maybe only 2 people. If it was a dream, it was a life-changing dream, and people have those. And people may say, Jason, you're actually a better person now because you're less reckless. I'm definitely a different person than I was October 3rd, 2012 to October 4th, 2012. I'm different. My thought patterns are different. The way I look at the world is different. The way I look at myself is different. Could just be a normal factor of aging. Could be that I was visited by an angel. And other people have encounters with angels, near-death experience and stuff like that. I thought, yeah, what if I had a near-death experience? What if I had a heart attack or something and this was my second chance? I don't know. People's personalities tend to change after near-death experiences, but other people have told me stories, and I've read stories about people seeing angels and their lives changing for the better. But I don't really look at it as the better. I just feel different. The empathy is almost crippling. People will tell me a horrible story, and to them, they're like, isn't that awful? And I'm like, yeah, that's the worst story I've ever heard in my life. I don't tell them that, because I know people tell horrible stories because they have to get it off their chest. But I don't go, oh my god, why'd you tell me that horrible, horrible story? But it affects me, whereas before, I totally would have forgotten about it. Again, might be a normal thing of aging. The being less reckless is most likely a normal form of aging. The angel visit could have just been a dream. But all 3 of those things have... Oh, and I forgot to tell you, actually, there's one more piece here. We'll end on this. This could easily be debunked as well, but I've tried very, very hard to debunk this part. So I said I was watching VHS on my birthday, and I go, that's weird, it didn't come out yet. VHS, it was released on video on demand on August 22nd, okay? It was released at theaters for a limited run on October 5th. According to the internet, it was never shown on cable television unless you did your video on demand. It was not shown. It wasn't even released until the next day. Now, to be fair, they could have been some special run on Shudder. They wanted to show it the day before and got permission, but that is not listed at all that I could find on the internet. So to make this whole story even weirder, I watched a movie on a cable channel movie theater. And I didn't do video on demand. It was on Shudder. It was on just a station. I turned on the TV and I watched it. I almost forgot that detail. Again, it's just a whole weird thing. So happy birthday, Jason. 7 years after meeting an angel. I gotta admit, my birthdays still make me a little nervous. Because I don't know what's going to happen if it comes back. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. Twitter is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a a great weekend, guys. And happy birthday to me. Woo! Happy birthday, Jason. Yeah. I'm giving you guys all high fives. Yeah. Okay, I'll see you guys next week.